Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And welcome to you. It's November 17th, I think. 16. I'm ahead of myself. It's the 16th, okay? Well, Trump's running for president. Look, my sense is that's a great thing for Democrats, because it sure as hell is a bad thing for Republicans. In many respects, it's not a good thing for our country, but I think it's important that Republicans come to terms with what they have done. And I don't see any indication that they are even close to doing so. And I'm troubled by, again, media acting as if it is a viable and legitimate Democratic Party, small d, Democratic Party. It is not. It became a cult, a neo-fascistic white nationalist party, and it can't just boot Donald Trump to the curb and then begin acting as if nothing ever happened. Plenty has happened. Plenty has happened. And I don't know, I've been reading a lot of stuff about just how many Trump true believers are there in the Republican Party. And, you know, that brings us into pollster territory, which I don't know about you, I sometimes take with a grain of salt. But the number I keep seeing is that even among registered Republicans, a full 40 to 50% are Trump. Trump, Trump, Trump. And that he will have those people. Then you got another huge number, 40%, 30 to 40, who voted for him not once, but twice, but now are thinking, that doesn't seem to be working real well. Let's find another person to head our neo-fascist party. And those are the folks clamoring for DeSantis. And then you've got this tiny little bit of never Trumpers. And what the hell any of them are still doing in the party, I can't imagine. So, I mean, I think the fact is that because nominees are chosen by the party in primaries, I don't see why Donald Trump couldn't be the nominee again. Now, what might get in the way is he ends up being convicted of a crime and sentenced to prison. That could get in the way. But in many respects, I mean, I think he's assuming that his run will give him some insulation from prosecution, which I suspect is not true. So I can't imagine, having watched his speech last night, which apparently was supposed to be 35 minutes, but because he, of course, went off the rails a number of times, it was over an hour. And I read that even Fox News that was carrying it live. That would be during Sean Hannity's show that they cut away. Finally, he bored them silly. But I don't know. I mean, a lot's going to be written about it. It's the same old Trump. It's a guy we know. God knows. And I think we now at least are not going to be surprised by anything that comes of this run. But I'm looking for one of the things he said during this speech, because I pulled it up. Oh, during his speech last night, he said that if he's indicted, he promises that here's the quote, there will be problems in this country, the likes of which perhaps we've never seen before. Now, because we've been schooled in Trump speak, unfortunately, we know what that is. That's a threat. That's a threat of political violence. And my guess is that is what might well come. That he is going to keep that combustible large group of his base ready with their pitchforks and tiki torches and AK, whatever they are. And yeah, he's promising again. So Dana Milbank had a piece today in the Washington Post about it, and had some, I think, really good takeaways. First of all, he noted that very few sitting Republican office holders showed up at Mar-a-Lago for the announcement. They even note that Matt Gaetz, for God's sake, said he couldn't make it. He said it was bad weather, which it was not. So there were no current members of there was, what's his name, Cawthorn, who's a current member just because he still holds the seat, and Madison Cawthorn, that awful human, but he was shown the door, so he's not going to be a member for more than another few months. So I'm looking for. He actually said in the course of his speech, "I'm a victim." I mean, we know that is the way that he. Again, we were talking yesterday about this, about a sense of grievance, and here it just flat out, "I'm a victim." He did his thing on immigrants, used words like poison, used words like sinister, used words like invasion. And then he said some really funny things. I thought he said that I want to find it. He said that he had, it's not in this thing. He said that he had done, I can't remember exactly what it was a lie. I mean, he was saying that during his reign that things had, of course, never been better, more jobs, more this, more that. And he said something about it was decades and decades of the greatest whatever ever. He was in office for 4 years. But it was decades and decades. Wow. Dana Milbank did quote Karl Marx, saying that Marx was speaking about huge historic figures that bestride our globe. And he said this about them, and it generally holds true. Marx said the first time that they come, and the first time is tragedy. The second, farce. And boy, oh boy, who knew that Karl Marx was going to sum up Donald Trump's political legacy? The first time as tragedy, the second as farce. So, I don't know. There he was. He's back. He's running. And I've seen, more political junkie articles about how the Republican Party does its primary races, and they're winner take all, which is one of the ways Trump pulled it off the first time, and how he could, in fact, pull it off a second, much to the horror of the party. So I don't know who said it, but this is the way I think. So you see the Republicans now, trying to thread the needle, trying to back away from Trump, but not upset that 40 to 50% of their base who love him. And they're backing away from him now, not because they found their moral compass. They're backing away because they now clearly see that he is a loser, a serial loser. And he loses seats for them and power for them. So the Republican Party without Trump will still be the same party. They just won't have to look as craven as they have had to under him. But they will still be dishonest. They will still be malicious. They will still be cruel and power hungry. They will still deal in lies and gamesmanship and brinksmanship. And they will still not have a coherent policy. Right? Nobody knows what they stand for anymore. Power. White power. So, I don't know. I'm looking to see if I have... and here's another thing that I did see. So the Republicans who think if we just get DeSantis in here, or Youngkin, these folks that they've decided will continue what the party is, but not with the stench and criminality of Trump. But the reality is they're blaming Trump for Mastriano. They're blaming Trump for Oz. They're blaming Trump for so many of the candidates that he endorsed and then lost. But what they're not acknowledging is that DeSantis came here to Pennsylvania and stood shoulder to shoulder with Mastriano, right? Youngkin went, and for Kerry Lake. So these supposedly non-Trump saviors of the Republican brand show no difference really, except that they're more, they're more presentable. They don't come with quite the amount of baggage. So, I mean, I am one who is thrilled. I don't know, I'd say thrilled that Trump's destruction is not over. And as his party tries to turn on him, at least many of the leaders of it, he will turn all his destructive powers on them. There is no doubt of that. And they know it. It's one of the reasons they fell in line in the first place. Now, it'll be interesting to see how media treat Trump's run this time. They have to cover it, but they don't have to cover it like they covered the last few runs. I have noted, and maybe I don't watch enough TV anymore to know if I saw what I thought I saw, which was an absence of coverage of some of the folks like in Arizona when the votes were still being counted and the governor's race there, Hobbs and Lake, had not been decided, that there were, threatening Trumpish acolytes outside where the counting was being done, intending to intimidate the people inside. Now, I only know that because it was alluded to in some reporting that I heard. But I never saw any video. I'm sure somebody covered it, but you see, 4 years ago or even 2 years ago, those people would have gotten, I think, a lot more coverage than they did this time. And that shows media trying, I suppose, for the moment, to not give people attempting to spread a lie, not helping them spread the lie. So I don't know, but I find it vaguely amusing that Republicans trying to escape him now are unable to really do so because they find him morally repugnant, because they sure as hell didn't. He's the same guy. It's not that. It's that it comes down to power, and he's costing them. They had thought he was, and he was, a way to achieve power, but not so much anymore. And I don't know that they want, maybe even more than we don't want, another Trump presidency. But he's their monster. Their monster. You know how, the crazy that surrounds him and that he brought so openly into our political reality and our political conversation. I mean, it was not that long ago that when we first heard about, like QAnon. I mean, you remember when you first heard about it, and then somebody told you what these people believed, and you thought, what? Right? I mean, any sane person would have said, what? What? It was pedophiles and blood drinking and Democrats and Trump is appointed by God and what the hell? And then I remember media seeing like QAnon stuff at some of Trump's rallies and remarking on it. But since all that, he has gone full QAnon himself. And he embraces every one of their craze theories and reposts them on his social media. Not that your eyes are ever going to encounter that. But I came upon this. This shows, the level of crazy that we're talking about when we talk about Donald Trump and the people who will commit violence because they belong to his cult. So somebody has reported, somebody who watches what's going on in the really intense MAGA universe and QAnon universe, and this would be social media, that they have already come up with a theory of why this Bitcoin thing, FTX, collapsed. And what they have, now here's what they think. Somebody comes up with this and they all, that's what happened. It was part of the Democrat conspiracy. You see, here's what they're saying. FTX was actually just a front to launder Ukrainian bribe money into the Democrats' coffers. Okay. And that was so the Democrats could steal these midterm elections. And then when the election was over, they shut it down. And that's why FTX isn't there anymore. It doesn't need to be. Is that not? The thing about conspiracy theories is, the only thing that gets in the way of coming up with one is, the limits of a person's imagination. And I guess, it's fascinating how people will fall for some ludicrous story rather than deal with the reality. Now, the reality is often a complex story and unsatisfying story and difficult maybe to follow. But then to replace it with another story that also, frankly, is difficult to follow, but somehow creates the right enemies, the right victims. Wow. And speaking of that, I'm sorry, I'm just doing stream of consciousness. I saw something that is so true, and it's about conspiracy theories. Excuse me. And it is that the way they work, and God knows we've all been schooled in this of late, unfortunately, seeing how QAnon and all this other stuff and the big lie and everything, how quickly they can be grasped and held close and create grievance and rage and violence. Right? And it's all lies. But we've seen it. I give you January 6th just as one. So what all conspiracy theories do, including this one I just regaled you with, that FTX was, it was a Ukrainian laundering font for Democrats to steal this last election. And then, of course, no reason for it to be there, so it was closed down. Conspiracy theories begin because there is a need to reject the explanation for an event, right? A bankruptcy of a huge Bitcoin, the loss of an election. A conspiracy theory arises when some people cannot tolerate the reality of what happened. And so they have to come up with something else. And because they can't prove what they're saying because they're making it up, it invariably has people or groups at the base of it operating in the shadows somehow, right? There has to be like some group, like with the QAnon thing and the, Hillary Clinton molesting children in a pizza parlor. Whatever. That kind of thing. There has to be this other whole universe of powerful actors and people that are manipulating things and then giving us some bogus explanation. And the conspiracy theorists always say, we will tell you what's really happening. Now, once you get to that point where you're willing to believe in this, I think the phrase that is used when talking about this is an invisible hand. Once you fall prey to believing in the invisible hand theory of history, then you are, anything can be explained. First of all, because it's invisible. But once a person falls down that rabbit hole, it's the invisible hand. Stop and think of the invisible hands that you have heard have been at the heart of our troubles. The Illuminati. Right? I'm thinking in my lifetime, the Illuminati, the Trilateral Commission. I mean, they're always sort of the same group. They're rich people, powerful people, untouchable people. the other hidden hand, once you start believing in hidden hand, it's hard not to. And here's what I thought. And it's hard not to become an anti-Semite. Because the oldest hidden hand theory, so it's got a 2,000-year head start on any of the other nefarious hidden hand theories, the Jews. So it's not unusual now that we're seeing so many in this country falling down the rabbit hole that Donald Trump in part showed them to. That, of course, you could start with QAnon, but at some point, man, the Jews are definitely going to be part of it. So when a country, a nation turns more and more to conspiracy, it's never a good thing for the Jews. If you watched Saturday Night Live, Dave Chappelle's monologue at the beginning, he did say, trying to school Kanye West, never start a sentence with these two consecutive words, the and Jews. It leads to nowhere but trouble. But all I'm saying is it was like a light bulb went off in my head, because I thought, wow, of course anti-Semitism is skyrocketing because so many Americans have bought into the conspiracy theory approach to comprehending their world. And once that happens, as I said, the Jews have had a 2,000-year head start in playing the scapegoat, the invisible hand. When it comes to scapegoats, I'm sorry, Jews are just way ahead of the pack. So that's a reality, and it doesn't, it doesn't make a Jew sleep any better at night. I'll tell you that. I was reading more about Henry Ford the other day, speaking of anti-Semites, and I also was reminded that a number of you and a number of people that I bumped into have said, you've got to listen to Rachel Maddow's podcast, Ultra, it's called. All I've heard is rave reviews. I still haven't gotten around to it, but I will read what Joan told me about it some time ago. She was, I think, the first one who said, look, you got to hear this. She says it's fascinating and it's terrifying. And what Maddow does, and she's very good at this. She's a good teacher. She, rather than laying out a conspiracy theory, lays out facts and helps connect dots in a timeline, in a historic way. And that's what she does in this podcast. So it's her schooling us on the fact that this kind of fascistic, white nationalist, American extremism has been with us our entire lives. And she pulls out of American history provable, verifiable events, not things she's made up, that show how this moment And this convulsion of American neo-fascistic, white nationalist, anti-Semitic, you name it, stuff is part and parcel of a long-standing American historic thread. And to call it a thread is maybe minimizing it, because thread seems so narrow, little. Because right now we are seeing it clearly. Not to see it, you'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind. And even then, that's no excuse. But, from Father Coughlin, who I always knew about because my father schooled his children in the anti-Semitism that existed when he was a boy, and would listen with his family to Father Coughlin's broadcast, where he would blame everything on the Jews. And I was always blown away how in my conversations over the years, when I'd bring Father Coughlin into a conversation, nobody knew him. So we do have an ability to forget our history when it is unseemly, when it is us not behaving well or up to our American ideals. So I've been wanting to tune you in to this. I guess you can find it wherever podcasts are found, or probably just at msnbc.com or something. I know it is associated with them in some way. So anyway, Ultra is what it's called. And wow, I cannot tell you how many people have buttonholed me. And oh my God. And told me to listen to it. I'm sorry, Terry, I just saw your subject line, and if you think I know the answer, you're nuts. What is the olive oil you and your sister love? I can assure you it ain't me, because I'm not into loving olive oil. That'd be Susan. And I do recall her talking about some olive oil a long time ago, but I can't help you. I don't know. My God, I'm one of those people, go to the grocery store and I see all these olive oils. You think I know? I don't have that refined a palate where it would make any difference to me whether I got the bargain basement one or the fancy dancy one. So I tend to cheap out on olive oils myself, but Susan, no, she goes high end, my sister. But I think she really liked this because it was something she found in New York, right? I'm vaguely remembering it, but I'm sorry, I can't help you. Allison writes, I guess, Allison, you watched Trump's speech last night? God, you got a stronger stomach than I do. Allison says, seeing him on the stage by himself. I thought of you mean Melania was not standing, looking at him adoringly? Geez, that's shocking. Seeing him on the stage by himself, I thought of the nursery rhyme, the cheese stands alone. The cheese stands alone. Allison says the cheese stands alone. Let's all pound the cheese. That's not the way I know it. Or were you kidding? I have to tell you, the cheese stands alone reminds me of the empathy of my niece, Beth, who at a birthday party, because we used to play, that's the kind of, hi-ho the dairy-o, the cheese stands alone. It's one of those children's games where, you end up isolating someone. The cheese. which is embodied by one of the kids, I guess. I don't remember how you play it. But I know that from a very reliable source that when poor little Bess first encountered the cheese stands alone, the cheese stands alone, that she burst into tears. And her mother, father, I don't know, Bess, what's wrong? And through her tears, she said, what? She said, the cheese stands alone. It's a bitch to be empathetic. It is. It's a bitch. Hey, speaking of that, I'm right now encountering like serious empathy for some chipmunks who have taken up residence for the winter. And their smile is very, I can see where this guy thinks, hey, I have a place or what. But it's under my front steps outside my house, the step to my house. And they've been able to get under it because I had a walkway installed and somehow it was not sealed up properly. And so, damn, those little guys. I mean, I first realized it because I saw a bunch of dirt kicked onto my walkway. And I thought, what the hell? And so I put the dirt back and then it came back out again. And I realized, oh my God, there's critters living under there. My concern now is, and this has been going on for some time, and a friend of mine said, well, you got to get them out of there. I said, well, how? I don't even, She said, well, maybe like throw mothballs down into the hole they're going in, and they won't be able to tolerate the smell. You'll ruin their house, and they'll find other lodgings. I thought that makes some sense. So I did that. And I think that was in August. And then, yeah, I didn't have the dirt for a long time. But then it started up again just last week. They're back. So I went and got more mothballs. God almighty, whoever used those things, man, geez, God. Why would you walk around in a enclosed space with clothes that stunk like that? Better to have moth holes. Anyway, so I threw some mothballs down, and I felt so sorry. I said, I'm sorry if you're in there, but God, guys, you got to get out because someone's coming to seal it up for real. And I don't want these critters in there when they seal it up. I was saying that to a friend. She said, oh yeah, man, that would stink. And I thought, no, I'm not thinking about the stink. I'm thinking about the suffering as they died of starvation. Jesus. Yeah. So anyway, so I threw more mothballs down just the other day. And I have to admit, I laughed when I saw 2 days later the mothballs back out. Those little critters had held their noses and somehow pushed those damn mothballs out of their house. Well, I'm just beside myself with this stuff now. I have a caller. Maybe somebody knows how to get rid of little chipmunks. I even thought of like making them a box. So, hey, come out and you can stay in here for the winter. Caller, go ahead.
Hello, Lynn. I hope you're well. This is kind of an old joke, but I don't get to use it very often. So you smell mothballs? How'd you get your nose between their legs?
Took me a while.
Yeah, it works real great on like 8-year-olds.
So I think a little older, no? What?
I'm a little behind the curve, but you were talking about all that fascist stuff earlier, and I remembered when I was a kid, I talked to people a lot. And my dad, he had a lot of older friends, so I talked to like a lot of World War II vets and stuff. And I just sort of have this weird remembrance of people saying stuff like, well, Mussolini made the trains run on time. There were a bunch of other stupid comments that they made. But by the time I was like 12, I was like, what are you talking about? I had a couple uncles that were in World War II, and they hated Nazis. I mean, they would say, screw those Nazis. They really hated them, and a lot of it was actually being mad at our own army for the mistakes that the fog of war, just stupidity causes. Seeing our friends getting killed. Sure. Because of incompetence and war too, but I these people they start to embrace this fascist bullshit, and I don't know how you make your mind so stupid. Like, how do you erase any intelligence or thoughtfulness to get yourself where like these assholes saying, "Oh, we'll bring the military in to do to fix the elections." Man,
well,
I think what the hell's going on?
Well, I think what sadly we've learned that there's a whole lot of stupid. There's a whole lot of people who, live their lives in a cloud of stupid. It's just the way it is.
Well, it's I've always my kids went to city schools, and I always try to talk. I talked to them a lot about stupidity, and it was hard for them, but I can just, it's really hard for my kids. I can just see, like, just like a lot of these kids there's a lot of them that are just thoughtless and they have no mindfulness. It's kind of scary. It made it really hard for my kids. It's good now they're all out of school, and they can select their friends more easily, but or the people they interact with more easily. But it was hard for them being around all this stupidity. But I think they at times, I'm not sure why, thank me for what my wife and I did for them. I don't know. We did our best. But there's another thing that I was just thinking about. I was talking to a couple kids last week, and they were talking about when my oldest kid was like about 12 or 13, so they were all within 5 years. They started asking me, "Do you have any regrets, Dad?" And I would admit to none. I have like 2 regrets, I think, my whole life. But I always told them, and this solidified my belief that I wouldn't change one thing in my life. All the bad stuff that happened to me, getting beat up in the neighborhood, being in car wrecks, drinking too much, losing girlfriends, all the crap that happened to me, all bad stuff, because if I changed anything, maybe one of you would be a little bit different. The timing would be different. Who knows, a different sperm might have swam up there, and it wouldn't be you, and I wouldn't trade my kids for anything.
There you go. Yeah. Well, I know that that's all true because of time travel movies. I get it. I know. Yeah, regret seems a dead end. I think God knows I've done a lot of regrettable things in my life, but stewing about things long gone that cannot be remedied or undone is just an incredible waste of time. It seems to me. I know so many people who just can't let go of something, and of a regret or something done to them, and that brings you into a bad place, into bitterness. You got to be able to let go. Got to let go.
Okay, I got to go, but here is my one regret. My kid was in high school, I think, and what was it? Bitcoin or something was around $1 or $2. He wanted me to buy some, and money was real tight, and I was thinking about buying $100 worth of that. And that's my one regret, not buying that $100 worth of Bitcoin. So
Well,
I would have sold
I
it
don't
a
know.
long time ago.
Well, if that's the level of your regret, then, man, you must sleep well at night. Hey, thanks.
So
Thank
long.
you.
Take care.
Okay. Yeah, you too. Bye-bye. Hey, Mary has written. Mary, I told you about, is the one who took her father to a doctor's appointment. And there was, at her doctor's office, Guns and Ammo magazines. And she wrote and said, I was listening to your podcast about 2 a.m. last night when I couldn't sleep. And Mary, I don't think, if I couldn't sleep at 2 a.m., which does happen to me, the last thing I do is listen to me. Anyway, imagine my surprise, she says, when you brought up my dad's doctor's visit. And she says, I actually took a picture of the magazine so I could post it on Facebook, and I'm looking at it. And wow, it was not, as I'd speculated, an old issue. It is from October 2022. Oh, and there's Hot Rod magazine underneath it. Okay. And it's in Lawrence County. So there you have it. And Mary says, in regard to conspiracy theories, there was a website saying that the Franklin regional stabbings, oh God, man, that's a while ago now, isn't it? That they never happened. Yeah, right. I forget what the theory was, why it never happened. Well, make it up. The constable in Newtown and the trauma surgeon at Forbes looked remarkably similar, and they were claiming it was the same person. Oh, my. I reported it to the FBI and never heard from them, but a few weeks later, the website was gone. Understandably, the kids were very upset about it at the time. I'm counting on those kids, on Generation Z, to spearhead gun control in the future, because all of them know what it's like to go to school scared. I have not been able to read about this latest, the horror on that bus in Virginia, and those 3 beautiful young men dead. And then the thing that happened, in Idaho or something, 4 other young people blown away. I can't, my God, if I can't handle a chipmunk under my front porch, you think I can handle human beings, young, beautiful human beings being blown away for no reason at all? God, I can't even look. Their pictures were in the paper, and I couldn't bear it. Those beautiful, smiling faces. I just couldn't bear it. God. No one's helping me with the chipmunks. Damn it. What am I supposed to do? All right. For all I know, one of those chipmunks is the one that was in my house. I've had 2 in my house. And both lived to tell the tale. Oh, no, one of them didn't. One lived to tell the tale. The other, I think, my dog inadvertently killed. Right. They're so damn cute. Oh. So I just have to say, I am really enjoying the Republicans' circular firing squad. I mean, how do you not? And, mainstream media constantly have headlines that say Democrats in disarray or Democrats intra-party fighting. And it sure as hell is nice to have them finally covering the Republicans in that way. And I saw that Mitch McConnell, the first time Mitch McConnell said something, I think, yeah, that's right, Mitch. Mitch was asked, geez, what the hell happened? And he said, we underperformed among independents and moderates, because their impression of many of the people in our party is that they're involved, and many of the people in our party and leadership roles, is that they're involved in chaos, negativity, excessive attacks. He went on to say those moderates were frightened of the GOP. Well, Mitch, I think you got that right. And it's not that the one thing that you got wrong in your explanation is you underperformed among those people, not because their impression of many of the people in your party are crazy and violent and cruel and awful. Lose the impression. It is the reality of your party. Where did they arrive at such an impression? From, of course, the real estate you guys don't deal in very much anymore. That would be the land of reality. Hey, speaking of reality, and I haven't seen this getting, again, but I have to stop saying that because I don't watch TV news very much. And I say, are they covering this? I don't know. I brought this up at a party the other night I was at, and nobody had heard of it. The Mississippi River. Are you aware of the Mississippi River is, in places, is literally like drying up. I mean, the drought, the banks of it, it has the mighty Mississippi, ladies and gentlemen. Sunken ships are emerging out of the water. You know, we've read about that happening because of drought in Europe. Well, it's happening here on the Mississippi. And barges carrying goods, this is the supply chain, barges carrying goods down the Mississippi are encountering incredible difficulty in navigating it. The barge traffic is choking. Some barges have been forced to lighten their loads so they can, I guess, ride higher. The cost of shipping your goods by barge has gone way, way up. We're talking about one of the country's most crucial shipping lanes. And in fact, a crucial shipping lane for much of the world's food supply. It's the Mississippi watershed covers 40% of the continental United States. And guys, it's vital for drinking water and transport, and it is at a crisis level. It says here that in its withered state, salt water has been able to push in to it from the Gulf of Mexico. And that does threaten the drinking water supply for a lot of Louisiana communities. So has that gotten any attention, that the Mississippi, the mighty Mississippi, I think we're talking mostly about the southern reaches of it, but I don't know. There's huge bottlenecks of these of barges. It's being called a historic drought. I don't know. It's one of those things, that's unthinkable. The Mississippi. Now we've heard right about the Colorado, because that is, man, the troubles of the drying up Colorado. I think we're aware of, but I just don't see a lot of reporting on these environmental cataclysms, because a drying up river doesn't happen as stunningly as a hurricane or a flood, but it can be every bit as destructive and an economic crisis created as a result. Anyway, I think that's it for me. I just happened to look at the clock. I think that's it for me. So I thank you for joining us. By the way, next week I'll only have shows on Monday and Tuesday, and then I got to head to Wisconsin and hope the airlines are up to it and help us all. So I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.